We just talked about the significant role that luck has on our lives, and that certainly applies to investing. You've likely inherited most of your money habits and knowledge from those closest to you, like your family or through a lucky encounter. If your family prioritized investing and good money fundamentals, chances are that some of those habits or skills were passed on to you in some way, even if you don't realize it. Or if you started investing early, it could have been because of a chance conversation or stumbling across a book or piece of content that struck a nerve on its importance. The majority of things that most influence our lives are things completely outside of our control. So when it comes to investing, we have to acknowledge that we don't all have the luxury of starting to invest at an early age. There's an underlying saying that goes something along the lines of, the best time to start investing is when you're young, the second best time is right now. It's a saying that highlights the importance of our best friend as investors, time. The longer we give our investments to work for us, the more they can grow, and the larger the positive difference is that they can make for us. But this saying puts us in a position of regret, wishing that we would have started earlier or done more in the past. Instead of getting caught up on what we could have done better in the past, we should focus our attention towards the future and on what we can do moving forward. Because of that, I prefer to say, the best time to start is right now. Since time is our best friend as investors, the sooner we start moving forward, or the more effort we make sooner than later, the more time we give our investments to work for us. Remember, it's not about criticizing the past. It's about optimizing the future. So we're looking to make improvements whatever way we can that will allow us to reap the benefits over the rest of our lives. When we look at the advantages of starting as soon as possible, they are clear and obvious. This chart compares contributions to expected balance if we earn an annual rate of return of 8%. In this example, someone contributes $200 bi-weekly, and we can see the results over a 10, 20, 30, and 40-year period. After 10 years, we would turn $52,000 of contributions into almost $80,000, which represents a gain of over 53%. After 20 years, our $104,000 of contributions would be worth over $256,000, an increase of almost 2.5 times. After 30 years, our $156,000 of contributions would be worth almost $650,000, for an increase of over 4 times. And finally, after 40 years, we would have turned $208,000 of contributions into over $1.5 million, for an increase of almost 7.5 times. What if, instead of ongoing regular contributions, you've accumulated a massive balance through regular savings? If someone invests $100,000 all at once, the numbers look even more impressive. And that's because we're giving a larger amount of money a longer time horizon. After 10 years, our balance doubles to around $215,000. After 20 years, we're looking at about $466,000, more than 4.5 times our contribution. After 30 years, we've 10x'd to just over $1 million. And after 40 years, we're sitting at almost $2.2 million, increasing our funds by nearly 22 times. Regardless of your future time horizon, investing can add incredible value to your overall financial picture. And it doesn't really matter if you haven't started already, as long as you start sooner than later. Remember, the best time to start is right now. Delaying when we begin subtracts valuable years of compounding in the end, which is when we expect to see the biggest gains, or the most benefit. Remember our friend Bob? Earlier we figured out that if Bob had 40 years to invest and earned an 8% annual return, he would have to contribute just less than $300 per month to reach his goal of accumulating $1 million for his ideal retirement. But what if he didn't want to contribute over the entire 40-year period? Let's take a look at a couple of situations. In scenario number 1, Bob is planning to contribute from age 25 to 35 for a total of 10 years. Once he hits that 10-year mark, he's going to stop contributing to his investments, but leave them invested to do their thing. So in total, he's contributing for 10 years and investing for a total of 40 years. In scenario number 2, Bob is going to wait until he's 35 to start investing, but he plans to invest from that point until he retires. So he'll be contributing for 30 years and investing for 30 years. In both scenarios, his goal is still to hit $1 million by age 65, when he wants to retire. If we run the math for scenario number 1, the results are pretty surprising. Because he's planning to invest more earlier, Bob would only have to contribute $500 per month, or $60,000 in total, over the 10-year period. After 10 years, his money would have grown to over $91,000, and if he continues to earn an 8% annual return over the next 30 years, his growth alone gets him to the $1 million mark. In scenario number 2, however, because we're looking at a shorter timeline to compound, Bob would have to contribute more. He would end up having to contribute $671 per month for 30 years, or $241,560 in total, over 4 times more than he does in scenario number 1, to end up with the same result. Now, in both scenarios, Bob does very well for himself, earning multiples of his contributions in each. But scenario number 1 clearly shows the advantages of starting early. He would have to contribute less per month and for a shorter period of time. If we squeeze one more scenario in there, one where he waits until he's 45 and contributes and invests for only 20 years, then scenario number 2 looks really good. Waiting another 10 years would require contributions of nearly $1,700 per month, or over $407,000 in total. Again, in this situation, he still grows his money at an incredible amount, increasing his contributions by almost 2.5 times. But it's pale in comparison to the more than 16 times in scenario number 1, and over 4 times in scenario number 2. My hope is that this illustrates 2 central ideas: that starting to invest sooner than later is extremely beneficial, and that starting to invest at any age has incredible potential. If you're not already investing, you haven't missed the train. In fact, it's standing right in front of you. We can make incredible positive influence over our lives at any age, with any amount of money. To really illustrate this, let's imagine one more scenario, one where Bob went through his entire working life without investing at all. He worked hard, saving as much as he could, sacrificing in other areas of his life, all in order to amass his $1 million needed to live his dream retirement. And let's say that he did it. What an accomplishment. Even if Bob goes through his entire life without investing, it's never too late to start. Imagine on the day that Bob retires, he decides to speak to a financial planner, and after learning about all of the benefits of investing properly, he decides to invest his $1 million. Over the next 30 years of his retirement, Bob's $1 million turns into almost $1.7 million, creating a benefit of nearly $700,000. This chart isn't the most efficient that it could have been. If Bob started investing early, at any point during his working life, he would have ended up having to contribute less than the full $1 million. So there could have been increased efficiency on the accumulation side. But life is full of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Regardless of when Bob starts to invest, just as long as he invests, he earns the benefit of it. He grows his money in an exponential way, easily earning 6 or 7 figures over his lifetime. Even in our hypothetical worst case, where he only starts to invest when he retires, still results in almost $700,000 of benefit. The moral of the story here is, the sooner we start, the better. But the biggest mistake that we can make is simply not investing at all. Depending on what's happening in the markets at the time, you may be hesitant or in a position of wondering if now is really the right time, whenever now is. The short answer is yes. It's always the best time to be an investor. But instead of simply taking my word for it, let me show you why. In the first chapter, we talked about how diversified asset allocation is the largest contributing factor to success, accounting for 90% of long-term performance. The remaining 10% was split between selection and timing. We'll take a closer look at why selection falls short in the next chapter, risk management, but right now, let's look at timing. Peter Lynch is one of the most successful investors of the 20th century. He ran a fund from 1977 to 1990, which had an annual rate of return of 29.2%, more than twice the S&P 500 during the same time. He put together data looking at 3 fictional investors who each invested $1,000 annually from 1965 to 1995. The first had terrible luck and always invested on the most expensive day of the year. The second had incredible luck and always invested on the cheapest day of the year. and the third always invested on the first day of each year. Over the 30-year period, the first investor averaged an annual return of 10.6%. The second investor averaged an annual return of 11.7%, and the third averaged an annual return of 11.0%. Surprisingly, perfect market timing only added 1.1% over the worst market timing, and only 0.7% over no timing at all. A Charles Schwab study looked at 5 fictional investors who each had $2,000 a year to invest over a 20-year period, from 2003 to 2022. Here's who the investors were and when they invested their $2,000 each year. Peter Perfect, on the best day. Ashley Action, on the first day. Matthew Monthly, divided equally on the first of each month. Rosie Rotten, on the worst day. Larry Linger, never. They stayed in cash, waiting for a better time. Surprisingly, having perfect market timing didn't provide that much more return than simply investing on the first day of each year. Never mind the fact that perfect market timing each and every year is impossible. If markets are open for an average of 250 days per year, that means your odds of picking the correct day to invest each year are 1 out of 250, or 0.4%. Over a 20-year period, it becomes even more impossible. I'm not going to try to read out the chances of that happening, so here they are. That's 47 zeros after the decimal point for the percentage, and that's 46 zeros after the 88 on the odds. As impossible as these odds are, they also represent the chance of investing everything on the worst day of the year for 20 straight years. And even if that ended up somehow being the case, you still would have turned $40,000 of contributions into almost $113,000, and about only $14,000 less than investing on the first of each year. Let's look at market timing from one final angle: additional benefit per hour. Let's say that before the market opens each day, our perfect market timer spends 30 minutes to evaluate where things are to make a decision if they will invest. Even after they make their investment for the year, they continue to spend 30 minutes a day gauging markets out of curiosity, in total spending 125 hours per year. The difference between perfect timing and investing on the first day of the year was $10,538. If someone spends 125 hours a year for 20 years, that equals an hourly wage of $4.22, which is about 25% of the lowest current minimum wage in Canada. Even the difference between best and worst is only an hourly rate of $10.30. You're likely to earn more from a minimum wage job than you are from trying to time the market. If we acknowledge the impossibility of timing the market perfectly over any period of time, simply investing on the first day of each year becomes the easiest choice. Not only does it provide fantastic returns, but it requires almost none of our time and energy trying to figure out what to do. Your quality of life would get a bigger return on investment by doing what you love, rather than spending your free time trying to squeeze out an extra percentage from your investments. Again, when it comes to investing, the only way we really lose is by not investing at all, which is clear looking at Larry's results. The study also looked back at a total of 78 rolling 20-year periods, going back to 1926. In 68 out of the 78 studies, they found the exact same order of results. In the other 10, investing on the first day of the year never came last. The only real loser in the study was never investing at all. Warren Buffett started investing when he was 11 years old, and has said that he started late, that he wishes he started earlier. Something said, half joking, I'm sure. But investing is all about making the best decisions moving forward. It doesn't matter if you haven't started but made some mistakes, or are in a good position but wanting to be in a great position. Investing, and especially investing properly, is something that we can take advantage of at any age. And it's important that you do, because if you don't, no one else can do it for you.